Hello and welcome to this NDTV exclusive. Now, one of the biggest expectations of this government, indeed of any government, is job creation. But it's also the greatest challenge. We're told time and time again of India's demographic dividend, that by the year 2020, we will be the youngest country in the world with a median age of 29. Now, this can turn into a demographic nightmare if not enough jobs are created for this emerging workforce. Someone who's thought very deeply about that in this present regime is Dr. Arvind Panagariya, the head of NITI Aayog. Thanks very much indeed, sir.
Our head is the Prime Minister.
The Vice Chairman of NITI Aayog. The actual head is the Prime Minister. Thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Now, I know that this is something that you looked at quite closely in this latest report that you've come up with, your sort of mid-term projection, 3-year projection. But I do want to ask you that if you look at the figures, such as they are for unemployment, it remains at a 5-year high. The average annual rate of job creation is steadily dropping. What is going wrong, you think?
Well, I'm not sure where your data are coming from.
Right.
The data on unemployment, such as they are collected rather infrequently.
Yeah, this is basically the Labour Bureau reports that come out from time to time, which is the only source of data that we have on a regular basis.
Right, but the serious surveys that get done by the National Sample Survey Organization,
yes,
those typically show the unemployment rates to be relatively low.
Right.
They depend. If you use the most liberal definition of employment,
yes,
then the unemployment rate is usually between 2 and 3%. If you use the most conservative definition of employment, then it's between 5 and 8%.
Okay, but even setting that aside, you would concede that there is a problem with job creation.
There has been an ongoing, continuous problem. It's not a new problem. I mean, we have long written that, and this has more to do with the underemployment. The jobs that basically are low productivity jobs and that do not pay good wages.
Right.
So really often people are doing things, they are getting something paid, but they are not really well paid jobs.
Now, the point here is, Dr. Panagariya, that since this government has come, the expectation level is higher because there's been a lot of talk by everyone from the Prime Minister downwards that the focus will be on increasing opportunities, particularly for the young. But on evidence, that doesn't seem to have happened. Where do you think the problem lies? Why is that not happening?
You know, as I said, this is a long-standing problem of organized sector, the formal sector in India not doing very well.
Okay.
And you can look at those data also the Labour Department puts up and all, you know,
yes,
where the greatest difficulty is in expanding organized sector jobs. Now,
yes,
if you think of our successful industries where, you know, you can get organized sector jobs, our successful sectors are auto parts,
yes,
two-wheelers, passenger cars, engineering goods industries, IT, software industry, pharmaceuticals. These are either highly capital intensive industries or they are highly skilled labor intensive industries.
Right.
Whereas the jobs that we need in very large numbers are at the level of either unskilled or low skilled levels.
You're talking about areas like textiles and so on.
Clothing, footwear. Even electronic industry actually can be a big employment generator for semi-skilled
Okay, now
workers.
some would argue that what you're saying is not necessarily new. We know this. We know the problem is that Indian industry focuses heavily on, as you say, these high-skilled, capital-intensive jobs and not enough on low-skilled, labor-intensive jobs. But why is that not changing, you think? Because I saw somewhere that you actually think part of the problem is with industry itself. Is that
I have said this.
I've
said that also.
Yeah.
That somehow, you know, and there may be some historical reasons for it, but our industrialists largely are hardwired to be in these, you know, tech kind of sectors. They seem not to kind of go into things like clothing,
right,
footwear, where you would have to deal with a large amount of.
You actually said, if I may be blunt, our entrepreneurs have a Brahminical attitude towards entrepreneurship.
I said that. Yes, I said that.
You said
because when I speak.
What do you mean by that?
Well, when I speak to the entrepreneurs, often, you know, they would say, "Oh no, you know, we don't want to do the clothing industry. We don't want to do footwear industry.
Right.
We do the."
But is it fair to blame the other side to blame the private sector for what some would call the government's own failings. If you look at the latest World Bank report on ease of doing business, India is at 142, which is right there at the bottom of the list.
Yeah. No, but they are doing automobiles, they are doing a lot of other things quite successfully, right?
Sure.
With the same ease of doing business environment. And by the way, so how you do it, ease of doing business is itself an issue, because after all, India today is one of the largest, either the largest or second largest recipient of foreign investment also. So, but that apart, what I'm saying here is, you are absolutely right. So, I don't think you can blame the individual entrepreneurs. They will go where the profits are. So I understand that. Where I do come in and ask the industry is that, look, when you're talking of the entire industry organizations, the chambers, the CII, the FICCI, all the chambers. I think as a group, industry does have some obligation to see that, look, there are 500 million workers, and we need good jobs. And so what I tell them is that, look, at least there is some obligation for you to come and tell the government that, look, do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things. I will then employ 250,000 workers.
But if you come back to job creation under this government, and again going with whatever data we have, what are the numbers telling us? Because if you look at the macro picture, the NSSO data suggests, according to some estimates, that close to about 12 million people, 12 to 14 million people are entering the workforce every year. That works out to almost 1 million people every month. So how many jobs is the government creating?
Right. So let me first also correct that number. I mean, that is, this number gets thrown in very frequently and without any scrutiny. But that million a month, or 12 to 14 million is the figure where the population is getting younger, crossing the age of 15 years.
Right.
So that is the number. But not everybody who crosses 15 actually joins the workforce.
Right.
So labor force participation rates have to be taken into account.
Fair enough.
When you, so I've got some rough calculation done. It is still a large number. Maybe it's more like 7 million a year instead of the 14.
So 7 million is a more.
It's still, so it's a substantial number.
That is a
substantial number. We can't. I mean, we can't.
So compared to that, 7 million is 70 lakhs for those more familiar with that metric. How many jobs, in your estimate, is the Indian government
no, so I can't estimate, because
able to create on an annual basis?
No, I can't estimate, because these are the numbers that need to be actually collected, which are not properly collected.
Which are not being properly collected.
And our chief statistician assures me that within some time, they will start doing these surveys, much more quarterly surveys and then annual surveys much more frequently and all. So let's wait for the numbers. But look, without numbers, I recognize that jobs remains a still difficult problem. And we can discuss that. And it's not only the fact that you got 7 million entering the workforce, but it also, lot of people today are employed in jobs that really barely give them a living.